Well, here we are today, the well after hours, going out of the studio onto location in Netley to the Yo Lounge and Café, a sweet experience. And we are about to enter in for a tour by the proprietors, my friends Christine and Tony. Hi, Christine. Thank you so much for having us today that we could come in and tour this beautiful establishment, Yo Lounge and Cafe, where you have all the sweet treats that, oh my goodness, it's just marvelous being here, I tell you. I could eat myself under the table and make myself sick with everything you have, since I have been here before this day to experience the wonderful treats. But Christine and Tony are the proprietors of this lovely establishment, Yo Lounge and Cafe in Nutley at 217 Franklin Avenue. And I'm just so glad that they're affording us the opportunity to take a tour before we actually sit down and hear about the real story behind all this glory. Okay, take it away, Christine.
Well, you won't get to see the store in action because we're closed for the season. We reopen in February. But just to give you a little glimpse and an idea of what we do here. Here we offer lounge seating, so if you want to come out and hang out with friends, we have plenty of seating available. We have more seating over here for family, friends. You can invite the whole family.
Yes.
We have tons of sweets for you. And a variety so that we can satisfy everyone's sweet tooth. We have Belgian waffles, crepes, bubble tea,
Wow.
seltzer frozen yogurt. We have iced tea, hot tea. The bubble tea can be made hot or cold. We make our tapioca here on site.
Wow.
So fresh. We have a wide variety of toppings for your yogurt or your waffles.
Oh my goodness.
Probably more than anyone else in the neighborhood, so we're told.
I've been to a few and I haven't seen this many. Wow.
Then,
Oh my goodness.
Over here we have just a sample of our different yogurt flavors and ice cream. We serve sorbet, vegan options also.
Wow. That's
so
awesome.
those that are non-dairy and sugar-free also.
Wow.
So we try to meet everyone's needs so that it's like a one-stop shop.
Yes, that's awesome. Oh
And
my
then back
goodness.
Here we have our party room, which has been rented for a variety of festivities.
Wow, this is a great sized room. Wow.
So this can be rented. It's really, we make it very reasonable so that it's affordable for everyone. Not only that, we also use
beautiful.
this room for ministry.
Oh my goodness, that's the
we
thing
use
I
it
love.
For men's ministry, women's ministries, children's ministries, youth groups, young adult groups. We actually have our Bible study here with our young adult group from our church, Temple Rock My Salvation in Newark. We meet here every Wednesday and Friday, and we get into the Word, and we just have a lot of fun.
Oh my goodness.
So this is our ministry room.
Wow. That's what I say about you all. That's why I love it so much, that this is not business as usual, but business unusual, because you all are partnered with the Lord and you do so many things here that, allow the Lord to just, like you said before, like marketplace ministry right here in the community. So you're going to hear a lot more about that when we actually get into the real story behind all this glory that you see. And you're going to meet Tony, who is Christine's husband, and they are the wonderful proprietors of this beautiful establishment. Christine, thank you so much for giving us the tour today, because this will allow the viewers to have a little more insight when we go into the story, because you just have to see it in order to believe it and how good God is. So
Awesome.
I thank you so much, and I can't wait for Tony to be a part of the interview so people can meet him too.
And we will see you all in February.
Yes, they'll be opening back up in February, so you have to come by and get some of these treats. Thank you so much,
Bye.
Christine. Hello, welcome to the Well After Hours, and we're just here hanging out at Yo Lounge Café in Nutley, 217 Franklin Avenue, having a great time with my special guest today, Tony and Christy. Oh, they are the proprietors of this lovely, lovely place where you can get all the sweets, probably more than you want, that you could ever anticipate. All the goodies that they offer are so great, and you'll see that in the tour that we give you beforehand. So, but I'm so glad to have you both here today. And they are Christian. They are Christian proprietors, and that makes it even better. It has such a great atmosphere. It's just a calming place that you can go. You can husband and wife, or two Christian couples. You want a nice, safe place to hang out. Here's a really good place to come out and hang out and talk to Tony and Christy. Because they love the Lord, and there's a story. This beautiful place that you see now, there's such a story even behind this. And I'm going to let Christy and Tony tell the story today, because it is one that is absolutely fascinating. And so, Christy, I met you again through a dear friend of both of ours, and I'm just so happy to do that. And when I heard your stories, I just feel like somebody has to tell the story. And I'm glad the Lord opened the door for, me to have you all both here, because people, like they say, they look at the glory, but they don't know the story,
Amen.
and haven't spoken to you. So at this point, I'm going to let you guys, tell each other about how you were inspired to even how we got to this place, how God kind of led you, the kind of journey that that you took. You can just tell it in your way.
In the beginning.
yes, right. That's where we started, in the beginning.
We've been serving the Lord faithfully for 20 years, and that is where it all began. It wasn't a fun journey. We've been together for 30 years,
Wow.
dated for 10, and then had our son, and 5 years after our son was born, it was like all hell broke loose.
Wow.
We were in a very bad place in our lives. We weren't serving the Lord. I was in college and planning to be a single mom.
Wow.
Because it wasn't the life that I had envisioned for myself, the life that I was living at that point. And
Well, at the time, I was a construction worker, highly paid construction worker, labor union. I thought, I'm the supplier here, and if I want to drink on Fridays and do whatever else extracurricular activities like doing drugs with my friends, which I picked up as a really young boy with my family actually, and well, I could go out on Fridays after work and spend a few hundred on drugs and drink, and it was okay.
Amen. Yeah.
And I would leave her at home, and not pick up the beeper. Back then we were beepers.
Because
So.
you were hanging out with the guys.
Of course,
That's
of course.
what guys do, yeah.
That was my right. I was a hard
That's
worker.
right.
Nobody. But years later, something big happened that I started feeling like there was something demonic upon me, and I was very scared. I couldn't sleep at night, and then I started to. I knew there was something wrong with me, so I said, I need to go to church. I need to get this oppression, whatever's going on with me. Oh, I need to find answers. Why am I feeling this way? So, you want to share the rest of that one?
I want to ask you a question. I know that you said you needed to go to church. Now, did you have some kind of prior experience with church that made you feel like, I need to turn back
Yes,
to church?
well, I was an altar boy. I went to Catholics, St. Lucy's in Newark. I was an altar boy growing up from the 5th grade to about the 8th grade. So I had a relationship with God, but I didn't know the word.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what he did for me. I didn't know he died, and he could just transform my life into, to have an actual relationship with him. I did not have that. But as a younger kid, I would pray, and he would answer prayers and whatnot. So, I always knew, and I always felt that there was something that that he had for me, and
Yes.
I was different from the rest.
Mm-hmm.
I was like different, so different.
So
and
at least your prior experience, kind of prompted him, like, wait a minute, I know I
Absolutely.
think God. So That was good. That's I wanted to make sure, to
Absolutely.
bring it up
Yeah.
that you had that. Wow, that's really something. So what
Yeah.
after then?
And so, like he said, he was drinking and drugging. I was in college. I had, a 5-year-old at home. And I grew up in the church also. But of course, in, your rebelliousness, you walk away from the things of the Lord. And I just didn't want to raise my son in that type of environment, So I was planning my great escape.
Wow.
Like he said, he would go to work and I would stay home, and he paid everything. So in my mind, as soon as I finished college, I would start my career and I could be on my own. I said I'd rather be a single mom than to
Be in a
live this
relation-
way.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, like he said, during that time when he started to feel that, okay, I there's something going on with me and I need the Lord, I was already bitter and angry. That anger had built up. That bitterness
By
had
then,
built
yeah.
up. I had a big wall. People would talk to me about the Lord, and my response was, well, I have all my life to receive the Lord. I know that the Lord is merciful, and when I'm done doing life on my terms, I'll turn to Him. Maybe in my 80s when I have, when I'm brittle and that's it. When
I can't do
When I
anything.
can't do anything, then I'll be like, okay, Lord, it's your turn. And that was my mentality at the time. And so, but the Lord had a plan, and so he took us down this road where it led us to a church. And even in even me being a brat, and not wanting him in my life, he sort of used what he was going through to bring me to the altar. And it was in a small church. It was on a second floor, so it was like in the upper room.
Oh my goodness.
And
That's a good description.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
And I remember, not wanting to be there, being there out of embarrassment because, they had to actually come out to the car to get me. But sitting in that service, kicking and screaming, even walking down the aisle, there was an altar call, and, I felt that we were the only oddballs in that church,
What
walking
kind of
right
church
off
was
of
it?
the street. It was, I like to call it a bodega church. It was a very small Pentecostal, legalistic church.
Yes.
And I had on jeans and sneakers, and I was a mess. And, I was a mess inside and outside. It was a reflection of what was happening inside. And so the pastor's preaching, and he has this altar call, and he's trying to get me to he's like, come on, let's go. This is what we need. We need to get up to the altar. And I was like, there is no way. Because like I said, I grew up in a Pentecostal church. And so I knew the meaning of going up to the altar
Yes.
and accepting Christ. And I knew that because of my anger, that I couldn't just walk up to the altar and say those words in vain. Like when you take that step of faith, it's serious. You're making a covenant with the Lord at that point. And so I didn't want that. And I remember fighting him and like nudging him, like, get off of me, I don't want to do this. And he was just really persistent, and because he didn't want to go up alone. And so I was going up for him. And so, we went up to that altar, and as the pastor said, repeat these words, it was like the love of the Lord overflowed. And I could not repeat those words in vain. And at that point, I accepted the Lord. And I cried because I knew that I didn't want to do it, but feeling his love, I knew that I couldn't live this life without him. And I accepted him that day. And when we left that church that day, I said, okay, from this point on, we leave behind our old ways. I said, we are going to start over, because I thought he had the same commitment to the Lord.
Wow.
But he was just running and trying to figure stuff out, because he already felt like there was something wrong and he needed God. And he was in a desperate mode,
Yes.
where he didn't fully understand that those words were life-giving words, you know, and if you really accepted them, that everything would change. But he was repeating them out of desperation, and there's a difference. You can go into a church and say those words over and over again, and it doesn't do anything unless it gets planted into your heart.
You know, and just to hold it there for a minute, is that when Tony wanted help so bad, like you said, he was desperate, and until God can never get through to you till you're desperate enough. You know what I mean? When you're desperate and you're looking for God, and while he may not have understood everything, he understood that this can help me. You know, you don't know how and what it's going to do. You may be looking for something instantaneously, but you're looking for help. And so therefore, it's like when he, you know, just the fact, like if I said, the scriptures say, man looketh on the outward appearance, but God knows the heart. And he knew his heart, that he wanted, you know, he wanted help. So it was like a step. It was starting. It was already in, you know, progress.
I absolutely knew, and I felt that he was the only one that could help me from this. And I didn't know how he was going to do it, but I knew in my spirit, the little bit that I knew about him was that he was the one I was going to run to. It wasn't, you know, a doctor or, you know, or whatever, you know, or counsel from a friend, because I even called them up, but they didn't have a solution. But I knew that Jesus was the answer. He could take away what was happening, how I was feeling. He was the one that was going to take it away.
Yeah. And it was a week to that day that our lives were just flipped upside down, because I finally understood that the Lord was really preparing me for battle. Hadn't I accepted the Lord that day, we probably wouldn't have been here. We wouldn't be here today, because the enemy tried really hard to stop what God had for our lives. And so, you know, a week to the day, we were back at the church for a prayer vigil. We went through the whole service, and it wasn't until we got home that I was confronted with evil, and I saw it in his eyes. And so, you know, when I heard a raspy voice coming from him, and I looked him in the eye and saw just everything was black. He had no white in his eye. And I, in my flesh, freaked out, and I was ready to run for the hills until I heard the Lord's voice audibly in my head, and he told me, do not fear, I'm with you, don't run. And I had to stop myself and go, okay, I know that the Lord is going to give me the strength. And it truly was a spiritual battle between good and evil that day. He was demonically oppressed, and I knew when it was him and when it was the demon speaking to me. You know, the enemy speaks to you of your past, because he doesn't know your future. He is not God's
That's
equal.
A good point. Yeah, that's
you know?
right.
And that's where the confusion comes in with people. They think that, you know, the enemy and God are stand equally side by side. God has no rivals. He has no equal. And, you know, and that day, God became very real in the presence of the Lord, because at points my life was in danger. You know, through this demonic oppression, he tried to at one point pull me and try to throw me out the window, but my feet were planted on the ground. I was not moved. You know, the enemy noticed and recognized the presence of the Lord in my life. And I give God the glory, because again, I had just given myself to the Lord a week prior, and he just brought words to memory that would help me to remind the enemy of my new future. Wow. You know, and when the enemy was trying to say, I know you, I had to reply with, you knew me. You don't know, because I am a new creation in Christ.
All right. Yeah.
You know, and so, you know, But this whole time, I didn't know what he was going through. You know, it was only what I was seeing and what I was going through. And I knew that I was fighting for both of our lives and for my family. And so you want to share a little bit about, you know, what you felt?
Well, what I was experiencing was the enemy was pretty much messing with all of my senses, with my hearing, with my smelling, with my visual. Everything that was around me didn't make sense. At the church, we had a one-night visual. That one night that we went back, it was like an all-night visual, and they were doing a skit about, you know, heaven and hell, those who were being left behind, those who were being, you know, taken into hell or whatever. And I was really freaking out about that because I didn't understand what's going on. I was like, how are they going to hell? Why would God allow that? Well, not only that, I was in a church service and I'm looking at the people, and then what I saw was that they didn't want me there. They didn't want me around. Like
Wow.
I saw them looking at me kind of like with evil, and that was really messing with me. I was really scared. You know, I didn't know what was going on. So when we left that one evening, when we went home, I began to read the Bible, and the words themselves changed, and they weren't making sense. Like literally, like they just changed, and they were saying like, you know, Satan is the ruler of your life, and it was like speaking to me, but this is not the Bible. These are not the words of God. So I immediately closed it and went upstairs while she was in bed, and I said, I need to go to bed. This something's wrong, you know. So as I entered the room, I can smell fire in my bedroom. Now I'm like, what is that smell? Well, why does it smell like fire? And I asked her, I said, do you smell that? And she said, no, I don't smell anything. I said, but it smells like fire. She's like, no, you just need to go to bed, relax. So I go to bed, and then now she was listening to the internet or whatever, the cable where they had Christian music. They still have it now. Back then we had it. We're listening to the words. I'm starting to listen to the words, and now the words are changing. And they were so self-centered.
Wow.
Self-centered, like, you know, you don't need anyone. You have control of your own life. And it was like all, it was
You
all
were
lies.
hearing
And I'm
not what
hearing
was
that.
hearing, what was
And it
actually
was like,
playing, but what was going on in your
absolutely.
head.
So I asked her, I said, what are you listening to? She says, Christian music. I said, that's not Christian music. You know, and it was really just fueling my fear within my spirit. Like, what's going on? You know, and I grew up in the Catholic religion where they teach you of purgatory. At one point, I literally believed that maybe at one point I died somewhere, and here I am in hell. Because purgatory is a place where you wait to either go to heaven or hell, wherever that might be. That's how I learned it.
Right.
So here I am thinking at one point of I must have died. And here I am, and who's next to me? That must be Satan himself. So that was just the way it was. My mind was working, and
Wow.
and the enemy was kind of like working on me. So I didn't know what was going on, but I knew I had to get out of there because I felt that at one point I might have hurt her because I kind of knew, and I was just really, really thirsty, and I kept drinking water and drinking water and drinking water.
Wow.
And I hate water. Like, it's hard for me even to drink water. Like, right now, I'm like, I don't like water. But I really was really just thirsty. I had this thirst of night. And it was like, I don't know, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, and I decided, and I told her, and I said, I need to leave because I don't want to hurt you. And at that moment, it was like the enemy was still speaking to me and telling me, what you need to do is that you need to kill yourself. You need to, you know, kill yourself, and this will all be
Oh, my
over.
goodness.
This will all be over. So I drive and I start looking for the highest place I can throw myself off of. And I park my car, and I tried to go into a couple buildings, and the doors were locked because I was gonna go into the building and go all the way up to the top and throw myself, because that was the answer that came to me. That's what came to my mind. The enemy told me that's what you need to do.
Well,
You need
listen,
to
I
throw
guess if he
yourself.
would try to tell Jesus to jump off,
Absolutely.
he would tell anybody. You
Absolutely.
Know, so.
So at that point, I'm just frantically and I start throwing myself in front of vehicles because the doors wouldn't open. So I decided another way I'd just throw myself in these speeding vehicles. But none of them, they broke, they stopped, they wouldn't hit me. And then some guy tried to come and like hold me and I thought that was maybe someone else trying to rapture me, take me to hell, drag me into hell. So then I hear the cops coming down the block on Bloomfield Avenue in Newark, and I said, oh, they're not going to get me. So there's a fence. There was an old Hertz building, and they had this fence with these spiky,
Yeah, those metal.
those spiky.
Wow.
So I literally jumped on it, and I started to try to pierce myself
Get
with
out,
that. Yes.
impaled. Oh my goodness, to be impaled by one of
To
those.
be
could just
impaled. Yes. And it wouldn't go through because they were just too close together, thank God. And then when the police officer came, I literally threw myself head first into the police officer and just kind of dove. I don't know how, but I literally just dove myself into the police car and hit my head, and but nothing happened. And I was dragged away into the psych ward. Into the hospital in Claramas. And you want to pick up the...
Wow. I tell you, when the enemy is trying to destroy you, but he can't.
He
I mean,
will
isn't
grow.
that something how he can do these things and it's like, okay, go ahead, and then I'm going to show you my glory. I'm going to show you my power. This is his little power, but he thinks, messing with your mind because the mind is the
Exactly.
battlefield,
Yes.
for all things. And that's what, if he can get our minds,
Yeah.
So, my goodness. So, from what
So
happened there.
now, I was home, and the cops come to the house, and they tell me that he's in the hospital, that he was throwing himself in front of traffic. I didn't know where he went, because when he told me he was leaving, I just prayed for his safety.
And he told you he left because he didn't want to hurt you. He had to get out of the house. Is it?
Yeah. And, and I knew that the Lord told me to stay there and fight. So I knew that as long
Stay
as
home.
we were home, we were safe.
Yes.
But once you go into the world, you're in a different realm.
Yes.
And so, the cops there, and I didn't have a car to get to the hospital, but finally my brother-in-law arrives. We get to the hospital. On the way, I'm telling my brother-in-law, just do not fear. What you're about to see is supernatural. It's not normal. I don't think he really fully believed me until we walked in and we see him in a padded room. He's sitting like Indian style, and still, his eyes are totally blacked out. My brother-in-law took one glimpse, and he did not want to stay. So at that point, my mom gets there, and this is when my mom comes in the scene, and I tell her, just stay here with him, because I didn't know what was going to happen after that. I leave to go get his sister, and just to fill her in on what had been happening throughout the night. When we get back to the hospital, my mom is standing in the parking lot, and she's hysterical. She's crying. She couldn't get a word out. And at that point, I said, something happened. He died. Like, that was my first, he's dead. I don't know how, because he was in the hospital, but that's it. She had explained that when she was there, when she was watching him in the room, and she explains it as an angelic voice, that he was crying out to her, saying, Mom, come in and sit with me. So she begged and pleaded the doctors to allow her to, go and sit with him, to comfort him. And
Because before then, they wouldn't let anybody in. Right?
Yeah, they wouldn't let anyone in. And she was like, it was so peaceful, and she was like, I'll just go sit with him and just talk to him. And as soon as she entered the room, he grabbed her, threw her in the room, locked her in the padded room. So now my mom is witnessing this from inside the room, looking out of a glass, and what she describes as, the doctors were trying to restrain him, and they were flying. She goes, he was flinging them like toys. You know, she was
Wow.
like, she was like, I didn't even recognize strength like that. Because she goes, some of these men were really big. And, you know, my husband's not a big guy, you know, and she was like, the biggest guy, you know, like jumped on him and he flung him off. And one of that doctor got a hold of his robe, which didn't stop him because he runs out of the hospital naked
Wow.
towards the park because we were in Claramas Hospital. And as she's telling me this story, like, it was almost like my life, you know, flashed before my eyes because, again, in my rebelliousness, I was not married. I didn't want to marry him because I didn't want people to say, oh, look, they got married because, oh, she had a baby. Or, you know, like, you're
Yes, I
just
know.
thinking, the enemy, again,
Yeah,
put
again,
stuff in your
yes.
mind. And I'm like, I never married him. I was never his wife. And this is it. There's not going to be another opportunity, you know? And so I asked the Lord, just let me see him one more time, dead or alive. And so I see this, you know, group of doctors coming towards us in the parking lot, and it didn't look good. And they tell me that we have to rush to University Hospital because they didn't think he was going to make it through the night. He had thrown himself off a building. Um, he had broke his femur bone, his knee. He had a lot of injuries, but what they explained was he was covered in blood pretty much. So they were like, he's not going to make it. So we rushed to University Hospital where we wait there for hours to hear, you know, a report. But again, the Lord spoke and told me he's going to be okay. And so I was at peace knowing and trusting the Lord because I was like, you didn't bring me all this way for nothing, you know? And when they came out hours later, it had to be more than 8 hours. We were waiting there. And they said, you know, he's going to be okay. You know, we put some rods and, you know, all kind of screws, you know, to fix him up. And they let us in to go see him. And he looked like a dead man, you know, laying there in the bed. He was swollen. His head was everything was swollen. But I still knew that didn't scare me.
And you were unconscious at that time.
Yes.
You weren't. Was he? Yeah.
No, he
No,
was
I don't
totally
remember anything.
unconscious.
Yeah.
Most
It
of
wasn't
the
like surgery and you wake up. He
No.
was still. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
most of that she just spoke about, I don't remember
Any of that.
any
right?
of that
Wow.
happening. Parts of it, me trying to escape, yeah, I remember. Me dragging my mother-in-law, and don't remember that.
Wow.
Don't remember speaking to her. More eye contact, signaling to do things in a way. Like, you know, when someone is telling you go that way and they're like signaling with their eyes. That's what I saw from her part. Like she was giving me the go. So that was telling me what to do. So that's how I like, she was like, yes, like I felt like she was telling me to put her in the room. This is what I'm seeing.
Yes. Right.
So I did it, and I do remember climbing up to the fire escape. I managed to jump about 20 feet to get to the fire escape, because fire escapes are tall.
Yeah.
You can't just, anyone can break into a building, but I literally jumped with one leap and brought the fire escape ladder down and climbed all the way to the top. And remember being up there and just seeing the top, and I could see the people from, like, I'm looking down, and I could see the nurses and the police officers saying, no, don't do it. But in my, you know, me not knowing and just thinking that this is what, you know, I needed to do to get saved, to be free from this, you know, whatever was happening to me, I cried.
Okay. Well, we're back from back to the Well After Hours, and we're continuing the story with Tony and Christy, because, as I said before, you see the glory, but there's a story behind that. They didn't just get here, and we left off at that break time talking about Tony after, you know, when you jumped from the building, and how many stories was the building? About
4 stories.
4 stories.
Four-story
Wow, and he
building.
hit hard pavement.
Yes.
When you hit the pavement, were you conscious of when you hit the pavement, or was it like after you came to consciousness after you hit the pavement?
No,
Because you wonder, you hear about
Yeah.
people well, when they're real high buildings, a lot of times they just die before they even hit the building. But that was pretty close. I mean,
Yes.
And you, all the way down, were you conscious, or what was the enemy doing?
Well, I threw
you
myself.
thought-
I pretty
threw
much
yourself.
surrendered myself
Self
to,
to
to
God, to
God,
Lord. At that
to the
point, you
Lord.
put your
I
hand-
said, and I threw myself, and I just closed my eyes, and I don't
Wow.
remember turning or flipping or anything, and I hit the pavement, and I could see my knee just totally, blown up, and I could feel the pain from my
And
leg.
you broke your femur, right?
I
It
broke
was
my
the
femur
Oh
bone,
my
and I
gosh.
pretty much demolished
Busted
my,
my
my
knee.
knee. I fractured my heels,
And I'm looking
couple
at you,
toes.
now
Yeah.
crossing like nothing's happening.
Nothing.
Everything is cool. It's
Yes.
great. Wow.
And immediately the doctors were there, and they they put me out, and I remember not
Performed the
wanting.
surgery, yeah.
I mean, I was still whatever. I was still smelling like like just fire, even just from them trying to put and that's what I could smell, just like fire. So because my belief system was that they're gonna torture me for eternity or
Yes,
wherever I was
right.
in this purgatory state. So I didn't want that, but and then I woke up maybe like 2 days later, the next day, and I woke up and I'm looking at myself in the hospital, and I'm like, because I don't remember anything that happened in the hospital. The only one person I do remember was my father. He was the only one I remember coming to my side. Although I had my wife, at the time she wasn't my wife, but she was there, and my family. I don't remember anyone, but I remember my dad. I remember my dad, and I told him, pray, because he's Catholic too, and he was like, I'm going to pray to Mary, and I said, no, I need you to pray to Jesus,
Wow.
because I know that he will help me through this. And I woke up, and I never felt any pain after that, till this day, and it's been over 20 years, and I've never felt one day of pain in this knee or this femur. And I know it's because God's hand was upon me, and he didn't allow that to happen.
And so as you were going through the healing process, and at what point did you really feel like, I'm free? When did you get your freedom? Like you felt like, God, you really have freed me from this,
Wow. I think
demonic
it was,
influence or possession, like it's gone. Like when did it, really subside that you
think it
had
was-
your whole mind back,
well, I think it was just 3 days after when I woke
Okay.
up from the hospital bed.
That was it.
And I was like, where's Christy? I felt like she didn't visit me, so I immediately called her, and I said, where are you? You haven't visited me. It's been, I've been here, and where are you? So she said, I've been there every day. So, on that third day, it was like I felt like, wait, here I am. I'm here. I'm okay. I'm alive. So she comes, and I'm in the wheelchair, and I sat her on my wheelchair, and I said, I need you to sit here. I got to talk to you. And I wheeled her to the window in the hospital, and I said,
And it wasn't
Real
even
romantic,
motorized,
right?
right?
No, it wasn't even
Yeah,
motor-
put it on.
so I took her down to the window, and I said, I want to do things right from now on. I want to serve the Lord, and I can't do this without you. And will you marry me?
Wow.
And she said yes, and we were just crying there, and
Yeah.
Oh my! I mean, it's like a double healing process. He was desperate. You had basically kind of given up on the relationship, like it was over, but you were standing by to help him. And not because you didn't love him, but you were just tired of the way things were. And look at how God took that incident,
Yeah.
to bring you.
It was a
all
double
together.
testimony.
Is it? Yes, I mean, oh my goodness! And you guys have been on fire for the Lord ever
Yes.
Amen.
since,
Yes.
and doing everything. And that's what's so phenomenal too about your business. That's another thing. How you came in to this business, to do that, and I say it's not business as usual, but business unusual, because
Wow.
you have actually invited the Lord into
Yes.
your business.
Amen. Yes, we have.
Kind of giving it back to
Absolutely.
Him. And tell me about some of the things that you do have here that are.
Well, when we got here, we knew that the Lord again was in the midst and brought us here. And we knew it was to be used for ministry, because anytime the Lord entrusts you with something, you have to be a good steward of it.
Yes.
You know, and we don't take that lightly. So we were like, if he's giving us this platform, anything he gives you is a platform. It's an opportunity. It's just like the story of the talents, right? The parable of the talents. If he gives you one, what are you going to do with it? Then he'll give you more. He's not just going to throw them all at you at once.
One time.
And so
Give you more than you can handle.
Yeah,
He knows,
absolutely.
yes.
and so coming here, we knew that, you know, he wanted to use it for ministry, and we were in partnership with that. And so it took a while, because, you know, again, in our flesh, even though we serve the Lord, you're dealing with the public, and it's a business and it's a storefront. And so it was really scary, because you even had, you know, Christians themselves coming and saying, you don't want to be too Christianese, you know, you don't want people to run away, because all they saw was business. But we saw ministry,
Yeah.
you know.
See?
And so if you allow people to speak into you and feed that fear, you're not gonna be obedient to the Lord.
Yes.
So you have to be, that relationship that you have has to be solid, where you bring everything before the presence of God and you say, Lord, what do you want?
Yes.
You know. And he gave us the courage, and we started with baby steps and just playing Christian music. And, you know, and people were receptive. And then the underground Christians got courage to say,
Yes.
there's Christian
Music,
music.
yeah.
Wait a minute. And then they're like, I'm Christian too. And we were like, hey, hi. And so we met so many brothers and sisters here. And then we just started, you know, it became a snowball effect, where we started inviting them to just come out and worship with us. You know, so after hours we would say, hey, you know, on this day, come out. And we would invite the brothers and sisters we met here and say, bring whoever you want. And we would, you know, hook up the mics and the music and just have a time of prayer and worship together. And it was amazing, because it really did feel like the Acts 2 church.
Wow.
You know, because we came together as the body of Christ, and we worshiped in one accord, in spirit and in truth. And no one felt like they were going to another church and you know, I'm playing my church dirty.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes we feel that way, that if you go visit another church, that you're being disobedient to your
yes.
house. And here the Lord allowed it where we're not a church. This is just a business. So, you know, it brought us together, and you could just feel a sweet presence, you know, like never before, and people crying and the Spirit moving, and it, you know, prophecy. And it was just like, wow, you know. And we
wonderful
did
place of
another
fellowship.
event, and
Wow.
and then people started coming and saying, hey, you know, can we rent the back room for, you know, to do a youth event or to do a Bible study? And we were like, you know, no, you know, if it's ministry, come on in. You know, just buy something. If you come in and you support us, you can use it for ministry, you know, free of charge, because this is not, again, it's not mine to hoard.
Wow.
You know,
that is
and we've had
awesome.
women's groups here, we've had
Yes.
men's groups here, we've had youth groups come out. Marriage ministry has planned, you know, game nights, and they come out and do karaoke, and you know, so it's been a lot of fun. And now, you know, again, once you give it up to the Lord and you say, Lord, do what you want in this place, you see the fruit.
Yes.
You know, you
yes.
see how he opens doors, he allows opportunity. We've had opportunities to pray for customers. We've had worship going while customers are coming in. And
Mini
that hasn't
concerts.
been, mini concerts.
We had a performer
Book
with
signings.
Blue Tree.
Christians have come here that have written books and have, you know, done book signings here. And, you know, and the public already knows. They know that this is a Christian establishment.
Yes.
We've had customers come in and ask us for prayer. We've had people come back and say, you know, I've been healed emotionally. I felt something lift off of me when you prayed for me. And it's been an amazing journey to, you know, and someone even told us, it was the first time I had heard of it, and they were like, wow, this is market ministry. And I was like,
goodness.
wow,
So
market, I
true.
never heard of that
I
term.
Yeah, you don't think
And
about
sure
it.
enough, we were called out into the marketplace to minister.
And I think when the scriptures say that go ye into all the world, it means that in any business. I mean,
So-
sometimes we just think that we're only called to church, but whatever field a Christian goes in, whether it's a medical field or a legal field, or whatever you do, you bring Christ there with you.
Amen.
There's
Amen.
a place for him
Yes.
there, and the fact that you have incorporated this into your business is to me is just awesome. And Christians sometimes look for a place they'd like to go to. I mean, we don't go to bars or clubs. Well, most of us.
Yeah.
Most of us. Not
I know
supposed
some
to.
people still do. There's a different view on that, but for the most part, to find a nice little place, a casual place where you kind of kick back and hear the kind of music you'd like to hear that feeds your spirit, and to get some nice fancy treats, and even if you have children, that you could come as a family.
Safe.
It's a beautiful, safe place that you can have a wonderful environment and enjoy it, and to me, that's just phenomenal. So I'm just glad that the Lord is continuing to bless you all. And I know, like you say, starting up, and this is to encourage other people, Christians who are trying to start a business, and it's so empowering because people think that God can do the miraculous. I listened to your story when you were saying about how you, before you even saw the place, different things that you were just speaking out that
Yes.
that the Lord was showing you that He liked to do, and you believed it, and for you to come in by faith and this is quite an undertaking,
It
in
was.
quite a city, like this. So to do that, you have to have faith, and you had faith in God, and God honored that faith, and look at where you are now. Like you say, I know the enemy doesn't give up, and he still tries, to do things. But anything God
I wanna share something. We've had through one of the book signings of it was a pastor who came and he wrote a book and he wanted to do his book signing here, and someone found out and they came in when they saw the location, and she was like, "Who's the owner of this place?" And they're like, "Oh, she's over there," or whatever. She comes up to me and she goes, "I prayed for 20 years for this place, and I asked the Lord, bring Christian people to this place." And I was like, "Why?" And she goes, "There used to be a bookstore here, and they were very into not only I don't know, like, I forget the name of that religion, like it's mind, body, one, they're
yes,
gods."
yes,
And
yes.
she said they
It was
did
more
seances,
humanistic and
yes,
secular,
humanistic, secular. She even said that they did witchcraft here. They used to do seances here, and she was a Christian, and she was like, "I don't want this in my city." And she said she
I guess they were
prayed.
spiritualists, like
Spiritualists.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Wow.
but what's funny is that we had never gotten any literature about that place. We didn't know it existed. And when she shared that, it was an honor that she was able to say, "I prayed for 20 years and I'm seeing it today, that answered prayer, because you're here and what you're doing here." And she was like, "The Lord is giving you territory." And and let me tell you, we've had prayers here, and we've had, like I said, worship, and we know that the enemy doesn't like to release things easily, and but when you know God, it's spiritual warfare.
Yes.
And when you know that He is giving you territory, there's always a battle. You're always at war.
Yes.
And so we knew that from that day, we were like, okay, when we come together, we're coming together for war.
Wow.
And we've claimed these four corners, because our church isn't in Nutley, but we understand, and the Lord has given us the eyes to see that this community also needs the Lord, and we pray for Nutley, and we pray for them, and we've invited them to church, and we've invited them here, and you know what, and we don't have to see the fruit.
No,
It's seeds.
absolutely.
All we have to do is plant seeds.
That's right. We
So-
say Peter may plant, Apollo
Yeah.
may water, but God's
That's
the one
right.
that's going to give the increase.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, anyone who is starting a business, anyone who's starting out, it's seeds, mustard seeds. They're not big. You know, but if you have a scripture verse on the wall, you don't know who's going to come in and read that, and it's going to minister to them, because the word doesn't come back void, right? You know, you don't understand a hello and a warm embrace, or just listening to people, really listening to them and offering them prayer. You know, we don't have to preach. All we have to be is the living word. We have to live out our faith, you know, and we can't be afraid of saying that we're Christian.
Exactly.
You know, because there is a need. And if the Lord put you in a place of business, it's because you're going to come in contact with his people who need to hear, and they need hope. You know, so make yourself available to them. You know, don't just do business as usual. You know, be unusual.
That's right.
You know, because we're extraordinary, right? We're not ordinary people. We're extraordinary people. And so, you know, it's any little thing that will give you the opportunity to create a conversation that maybe the Lord wants to use as an opportunity to bring that person to faith.
That is awesome. Well, I think any of our viewers who have been thinking about opening up a business or starting up a business, we talk about it so often for a long time, and it's you have to take that step of faith. If you feel that prompting or that provoking of God inside telling you to do things, and your bank account may be low, it may look like you don't have enough, but the God who is more than enough, you know, if you have faith to step out when he says go, all you have to do is go. Because remember, when the children of Israel were crossing the river Jordan, and they had the ark of the covenant with them, the waters didn't part till they stepped their foot. They have to step into it. Sometimes you have to step into, you know, what God is prompting you to do by faith. You have to, by faith is what moves, you know, because without faith, it's impossible to please God.
That's right.
You know, so listen, God is still doing great things and great miracles. And Paul said, I wish above all things that you would prosper and be in health. God does want us to prosper and to be good stewards over what he gives us, because we can help promote the gospel even the more, you know. So we thank God for Christy and Tony. Thank you for sharing your story and allowing me to come here. We took the well outside the four walls and we came here. So I'm so grateful for that. And we're going to continue to pray, and we're going to come back and visit you again, because this is really just a small portion. There's so much we could say and go on, and I could just sit in this beautiful place the whole day and enjoy myself. But I want to thank you guys for being here. Thank you for encouraging our viewing audience. And again, I want to encourage you to listen, travel to Nutley, to 217 Franklin Avenue, to Yo Lounge Café, and get the treats. They have a menu. They're going to be closing up until and they'll reopen.
Back in February. So we're going to take off for the holidays and much needed rest.
Yes.
So but yes, we will be back in February, the first week of February.
Great.
So stay posted.
Wonderful. Well, I'm looking forward to coming back and getting some more of those treats, and hope to maybe do another interview and a follow up on things. And don't forget that they also make this place available for small meetings, you know, study groups. If you have a women's group, that you can always bring them here. It'd be a wonderful place that they could, you know, have a nice private section where they can, you know, pray for one another and discuss scriptures and just glorify the Lord. So keep that in mind. And also remember, every Thursday, 7:30 p.m. on Facebook, Beverly D. Allen, and that's the page, and on YouTube, Beverly D. Allen Ministries, LLC. Watch The Well After Hours. And thank you for being with us today. God bless you. Bye-bye.
Bye.